Theologians claim that the story of Christianity has three parts. First, the historical Jesus. Second, after Jesus and before Christ. Christianity, third, beginning with Constantine. With imperial backing, Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire and then the Byzantine Empire. Is there a birth story that can be considered historical? If so, what is the evidence? The naming of the four Gospels started with Irenaeus around 180 CE. It was claimed that the first Gospel was Mark, written about 70 CE, followed by Matthew and Luke a decade or so later, and John before the year 100. Recent scholars have suggested a wider range of dates. A key point is Mark had no birth story. He starts with Jesus at the Sea of Galilee being baptized by John. Birth stories are in both Matthew and Luke, but they are different stories. Matthew has a Jesus genealogy starting with Adam through David to Joseph. To confuse the issue, Mary conceives Jesus by the Holy Ghost, while an angel instructs Joseph to name him Jesus the Messiah and Mary, Mary. Presumably, this was based on fulfilling a prophecy in Isaiah. Granted, the prophecy could have been a young woman rather than a virgin. Jesus is born in Bethlehem during the reign of Herod. The wise men, magi, visit bearing gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, just what a newborn needs. Then they flee to Egypt. Herod orders the execution of the innocents, all the male children in Bethlehem. The family settles in Nazareth. If you were hearing this for the first time, you would probably be confused and have a number of questions. The Luke story is even more complicated, with an angel telling Mary she would give birth to Jesus, the Son of God. That was actually a title adopted by various Roman emperors. A census demanded by Augustus had Joseph and Mary travel from Nazareth to Bethlehem, his ancestral city. Mary gave birth to Jesus, who was put into a manger, and shepherds visited. As a descendant of David, Jesus would be the promised Messiah. That's an anointed one. The Israelites anointed both kings and priests. 2,000-year-old birth stories seem improbable for a peasant teacher executed by the horrible torture of crucifixion. However, for the Son of God and part of the Holy Trinity, it became central. Apparently, few Jesus followers, later called Christians, questioned the rationale. Granted, a scientific background leads one to reject miracles, to the ire of devoted Christians worshiping the magic. Give the medieval interpreters credit for adding interesting tales showing the expanding creativity. Added birth stories have Jesus born in a cave, maybe surrounded by midwives. The baby Jesus and the Holy Family would glow. Add the shepherds, ox, and ass, then more stories of the wise men, magi, bearing gifts. The Church of the Nativity would be built at the claimed site of the cave. Add additional details on the flight into Egypt to escape King Herod. During the Middle Ages, Europe was firmly Catholic when the Church was all-powerful. Catholic Mass in Latin probably meant illiterate peasants had little knowledge of required dogma, agreeing with whatever the clergy said. That meant the Gospels were accepted as literal truth, including the virgin birth. People were devout followers. Non-believers were heretics. That could mean the Inquisition, torture until renouncing false beliefs, then burned to the stake. Painters were particularly devout, probably because the church and nobles had the cash to spend on religious portraits and sculptures. That improved into the Renaissance when masters like Michelangelo and Leonardo produced masterpieces. Granted, rich merchants preferred pictures of themselves, but still, religious art predominated. Think the Medici Florence versus the Papal Vatican City, a stern-faced Lorenzo the Magnificent versus the Sistine Chapel. Don't forget the great art of the baby Jesus. Martin Luther and the Reformation created Protestantism and a religiously changed Europe. Luther's interpretation of the birth stories was more humane. Mary and Joseph were humans going through the struggles, pain, and humble circumstances of the birth with the humiliation of the stable. Jesus was still divine, and Mary had the necessary faith. There was agreement with the Gospels, but a different presentation. The interpretations of Jesus' birth relative to Christmas vary by religious denominations and other cultural factors. Then add the commercial and other secular elements. This is a time of year to spend, spend, spend. Usually the Gospels of Matthew and Luke are blended into one story, beginning with Mary and the Annunciation, the trip to Bethlehem with Joseph, birth in the manger, shepherds, and the wise men. Absolutely add the Christmas carols of both religious and secular pleasure. Merry Christmas! We're not done with the holiday season. Don't forget the eating. Holidays mean lots of food. More celebrations start with New Year's Eve, then New Year's Day for those that can get up without a hangover. Next time on Food History and Mystery.